How's it going, everyone? My name is Lone Vault Wanderer, and welcome back to the final episode of BioShock: The Definitive Story, the series where we explore the main story of the original BioShock game. Last time, we discussed the levels of Hephaestus and Rapture Central Control, and you can find that video linked in the description below. Today, we will cover Olympus Heights, Apollo Square, Point Prometheus, and Proving Grounds. If you enjoy the video, please like and subscribe. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. BioShock: The Definitive Story, Part 6, the finale. After being knocked out unconscious, Jack awakes in a room surrounded by little sisters, which turns out to be inside Tenenbaum's safe house located under Olympus Heights. Olympus Heights is part of the high end of Rapture, where the apartments of the rich and wealthy are located. In the room adjacent is Tenenbaum herself, and she explains to Jack that Fontaine brought him here to Rapture merely as a tool to save Fontaine. But thanks to Jack's kindness with the little sisters, Tenenbaum has decided to assist Jack, and she starts by undoing some of Fontaine's mental conditioning over Jack. Now, Fontaine no longer has complete control over Jack, although there still may be some unpleasant strings he can pull. Tenenbaum goes on to explain how she was partly responsible for Jack's creation, and although Fontaine has most of the keys that can unlock Jack's mind, Dr. Yi Su-chong was the one that designed his mind and taught Fontaine to control Jack in the first place. So, Jack will be able to find answers inside Su-chong's flat in Mercury Suites. Jack is escorted out of Tenenbaum's safe house by a little sister, and as he begins to head to Su-chong's flat, Fontaine contacts him and tries to use the "Would you kindly" command to have Jack get himself killed by Big Daddy. Although after several attempts, Fontaine soon realizes that the mental conditioning has been broken. So instead, he utilizes one of the aforementioned unpleasant strings and utters the phrase "Code Yellow," which forces Jack's heart to start beating much more slowly, which reduces Jack's max health and, if left unchecked, will eventually stop his heart from beating altogether. Tenenbaum informs Jack that once he is fully free of Fontaine's control, then he can have his vengeance. So Jack makes his way to Su-chong's suite, and soon after entry, he finds an audio log which explains that Fontaine commissioned Su-chong to create Lot 192, an antidote to the mental control plasmid that was used on Jack. Fontaine created this just as a backup, and both he and Su-chong kept this antidote a secret even from Tenenbaum. Tenenbaum tells Jack to find Lot 192, stating that while Su-chong must have some in his labs near Apollo Square, she also secretly stole a dose in the past and kept it in her apartment on the second floor of Olympus Heights. At the time, she didn't know exactly what this substance was, but now realizes that it must be Lot 192. Jack heads to Tenenbaum's apartment, while Fontaine continues to lower his health, and although he expresses regret for what he is doing, he explains to Jack that he has invested 12 years in Rapture, so he just can't walk away from it all. Unfortunately, Tenenbaum's apartment has been raided by Fontaine's men, which means that Lot 192 has likely been taken to Fontaine's penthouse, which is accessible only via a locked elevator in the middle of Olympus Heights. However, a nearby audio log reveals the elevator code to be 5744, and that log also suggests that Fontaine and Tenenbaum used to be in a romantic relationship with one another that eventually resulted in a breakup. This could explain why Fontaine expresses such hostility to Jack about his newfound alliance with Tenenbaum. Jack takes the elevator up to Fontaine's penthouse, and as he does, Tenenbaum tells Jack that he is the savior of the little sisters, but then asks, will he simply stop there, or also help them escape from the city as well? After killing a few splicers and turrets, Jack finally collects a sample of Lot 192 that frees the lingering control Fontaine has over Jack, but it does cause some side effects. Tenenbaum explains that this is because Lot 192 has completely reorganized Jack's entire plasmid structure. So without the full dosage, the side effects will remain, which include Jack not being able to choose which plasmid he has equipped. So, Tenenbaum instructs Jack to head to Su-chong's lab in Artemis Suites in order to find more Lot 192 so he can fully remove the side effects. And with that, Jack leaves Olympus Heights and takes the bulkhead to Apollo Square. Apollo Square is a short endeavor for Jack. After arriving, he has to fight off increasing amounts of splicers while continuing to deal with the side effects of the small Lot 192 dosage. Jack then reaches Artemis Suites and enters Dr. Su-chong's clinic. And a small deviation here. Do you remember the earlier episode where I explained how Dr. Suchong died by the hands of a Big Daddy after he struck a little sister? Well, Jack can actually see the aftermath of that encounter, with Suchong's dead corpse viewable on a table, impaled by a Big Daddy drill, which is also accompanied by the protection bond audio log that describes the lead up to the gruesome scene. Thereafter, Jack obtains the second dosage of Lot 192, and he is finally saved from Fontaine's control with no more side effects. So, Tenenbaum tells Jack to take the bathysphere to Point Prometheus in order to settle the matter with Fontaine. As Jack takes down the lift to the bathysphere, Fontaine contacts him, expressing his anger that Jack broke the spell, but still welcomes his arrival to Prometheus so that they can discuss things like men. And with that, Jack takes the bathysphere to Point Prometheus. Point Prometheus is the part of Rapture where Little Sisters and Big Daddies are actually made and constructed. After arriving, Fontaine himself is waiting for Jack outside of the bathysphere, and even lights part of it on fire. Tenenbaum quickly urges Jack to head after Fontaine and kill him. After an extensive chase, Fontaine manages to get away and secure himself behind a door inside Proving Grounds. Fontaine also destroys the switch to this door, and then he offers Jack a last chance to pack it in now while Fontaine leaves Rapture to both Jack and Tenenbaum. He then issues a final warning to Jack. If he keeps coming after him, Rapture will become a fish tank. So with Fontaine getting away, Tenenbaum concocts a plan for Jack to obtain access to him. The door that Fontaine locked is one that contains a small hatch that Little Sisters can actually enter. So the only way for Jack to get the door open is by having a Little Sister open it for him from the other side. And this will only happen if he can get a Little Sister to trust him by looking like, sounding like, and even smelling like a Big Daddy. So in effect, Jack himself needs to become a Big Daddy and acquire all of the necessary parts, starting with the suit control system, which can be found on a nearby dead Big Daddy. Next, Jack finds the boots of a Big Daddy that were supposed to be inside fail-safe armored escorts, where all the other Big Daddy armor pieces are located. This location is also where all the Big Daddies were built. So naturally, Jack heads there next, while Fontaine continues to taunt and insult him, mentioning how he has no family and nowhere else to go. Inside armored escorts, Jack can find Big Daddy helmets for the Rosie model in the room candidate inductions. And then in the main hall are several bodysuits, the final piece of the Big Daddy armor, which altogether provides Jack with a 25% resistance to all damage. With the armor out of the way, Jack now needs to sound like a Big Daddy, which requires him to install a voice box. To do so, Jack heads to Optimize Eugenics, the main research and testing facility dedicated to prototyping, analyzing, and testing new plasmids and other genetic enhancements. Inside there, Jack finds a larynx modification machine, which can install the Big Daddy voice box. Before he uses it, Fontaine warns him that turning into a Big Daddy is not a two-way street, implying that the process is not reversible. But regardless, Jack installs the voice box, which, by the looks of it, does not seem like the most pleasant experience in the world. So with the suit and voice sorted, Tenenbaum tells Jack that the last piece of the puzzle to turn him into a Big Daddy are pheromones, which are located inside the Little Wonders educational facility, which is where the Little Sisters were created, trained, and mentally conditioned. As explained in a former episode, Little Sisters were initially scared of the Big Daddies, but Tenenbaum was involved in breeding the Little Sisters so that they imprinted onto certain smells, i.e. the pheromones, which resulted in Little Sisters actually enjoying the company of and trusting Big Daddies. But Jack will need 3 industrial-sized applications of the pheromones to actually smell like a Big Daddy, which will then allow him to successfully attract a Little Sister. As Jack finds these pheromones, Fontaine continues to taunt him, stating that after Jack is dead, he's going to go to Tenenbaum's safe house, take it apart piece by piece, and even kill all of the Little Sisters therein. With the third and final pheromone, Tenenbaum tells Jack that he has successfully become a Big Daddy, and that he now must go to the Little Sister vent by the Proving Grounds. Even at this stage, Fontaine is still contacting Jack, stating how he has all of the Adam and Rapture, so even though Jack is now a Big Daddy, it's not going to scare him one bit. When arriving at the vent, Tenenbaum instructs Jack to bring a Little Sister out of hiding by hitting the vent with his wrench. Jack does as asked, and a Little Sister quickly appears out of her hidey hole and then crawls inside the hole in the door to open it up. So finally, with the Little Sister accompanying him, Jack takes the bulkhead to the final area of the game, Proving Grounds. After arriving inside Proving Grounds' museum lobby, Tenenbaum tells Jack that the little sister will lead him right to Fontaine, but he must protect her while doing so, even though the little sister is cured and physically free of the need to gather Adam. Due to the mental manipulation she was subject to as a little sister by Dr. Yisu Chong, she still feels the urge to stop at dead corpses in order to extract Adam. When she does so, many splicers are attracted to her location due to the Adam being harvested, so Jack must fend off all of them and ensure the little sister doesn't die, just like a Big Daddy would naturally do. Along the way, another Big Daddy tries to attack Jack, as he is instinctively trying to protect the little sister too, but Jack kills the Big Daddy, and Tenenbaum informs Jack that the little sister is better off with him anyways. Fontaine contacts Jack again, stating that he needs more and more Adam so that he can splice himself until there is nothing left to splice with. It is implied here that Fontaine is completely abusing his body with all of the Adam at his disposal, so who knows what will be the end result. But finally, Jack enters the special exhibit entry, the final room before the man himself, Fontaine. Once Jack takes a lift up to Fontaine, there is no turning back, so Tenenbaum instructs him to get prepared by using the available Gatherer's Garden, ammo, and vending machines. Tenenbaum also tells Jack how he must kill Fontaine, and the only way to do so is by using the needle of a little sister to drain Fontaine of all of his Adam. The little sister that accompanied Jack will provide him with the necessary needle. So, with that needle in hand, Jack takes up the last elevator to confront Frank Fontaine.
I remember when me and the crowd put you in that sub. You were no more than 2. You were my ace in the hole, but you were also the closest thing I ever had to a son. And that's why this hurts. Betrayal, kid. Life ain't strictly business.
Jack must now battle Fontaine, who is strapped up to a machine that is just constantly pumping him with more and more Adam. Fontaine has spliced his body beyond recognition. He is increased in size and strength, and possesses an array of deadly plasmid attacks. As Tenenbaum stated, Jack must use the needle on Fontaine several times in order to drain him of all of his Adam. In between each jab of the needle, Fontaine will break free of his restraints and attack Jack, and he must be injured enough to force Fontaine to teleport back to the machine using his plasmids. The battle is intense, as Jack fights not only Fontaine, but also security bots and splicers that are still at Fontaine's disposal, but Jack persists. And finally, with the last drain of Fontaine's remaining Adam, the following scene plays.
I had you built! I sent you topside! I called you back, showed you what you was capable of! Even that life you thought you had, that was something I dreamed up and had tattooed inside your head. Now if you don't call that family, I don't know what is! And now...
After Fontaine's death, we finally get to BioShock's ending, or should I say, endings. There are 3 different endings in BioShock, and which one Jack gets will depend on how many little sisters he decided to save in Rapture, and also how many he decided to harvest. All of the endings are narrated by Tenenbaum herself, and while it's presumed that the good ending is the canon ending, this is never really confirmed in the game or in later games for that matter. So, one of the little sisters who killed Fontaine will present Jack with the genetic key to Rapture, which, as you remember, will provide the holder with complete control over the city, exactly like Ryan and then Fontaine had. And it's at this point that the 3 different endings can reveal themselves. If during his time in Rapture, Jack decided to harvest every single little sister, the evil ending will play, where Jack turns on the little sisters who helped him, and Tenenbaum condemns his actions in an incredibly harsh manner. It is implied by Tenenbaum that Jack actually kills all of these little sisters. Then, Jack frees himself and an army of splicers from Rapture, and takes them up to the surface in bathyspheres. Here, a submarine can be found inspecting and attempting to salvage the plane wreckage that we now know Jack himself caused. But then, the splicers emerge from the bathyspheres and begin to kill everyone on the sub. and once they take control of it, it's then revealed that the sub itself has nuclear weapons on board. Again, in a narration, Tenenbaum severely condemns Jack for his actions, criticizing his brutality of the little sisters, his selfishness in taking all of Rapture's Atom, and then finally, his insatiable need for power after heading to the surface to wreak havoc on the world. For the second ending, if Jack decides to both harvest and save little sisters, another evil ending will play in almost the exact same fashion as the first one. However, in this version, Tenenbaum is not so much angry at Jack as she is disappointed. This is presumably because Tenenbaum saw that Jack had some good inside of him because he decided to save some little sisters. But in the end, he still harvested a lot of them and then killed the remainders and took his army of splicers to the above world. But for the third ending, if Jack decided to cure and save every single little sister in Rapture, or all but one little sister, the good ending will play. In this narration, Tenenbaum is of course happy about the result. Jack shows kindness to the little sister and actually declines the genetic key that would allow him complete control over Rapture. Instead, Jack takes the remaining little sisters up to the surface and then raises them as his daughters, allowing them to have the normal life that they never could have had in Rapture as little sisters. They were able to grow up, get educated, get married, and even have children. And then eventually, Jack is on his deathbed dying of old age, but all of the little sisters are at his side still, holding his hand as he drifts off into the afterlife. Finally, Jack got to have the family that he never had. Thank you for watching the final episode of BioShock: The Definitive Story. I really do hope that you enjoyed this series. It was a lot of work and effort, but in the end, I truly do think it was worth it. And I'm really glad that I stuck to it and actually completed something that I set out to complete. And now we can start a new Definitive Story series for the next game, which, between Fallout 3 and Borderlands, you all voted to be Borderlands. I cannot wait to explore the story of this game with you all. For the last time, give a big thank you in the comments below to the main contributors of the Definitive Story. They all helped immensely with the script, as did BioShock's wiki site run by Fandom, which is linked in the description below. So until next time, this has been the Lone Vault Wanderer. Please take care of yourself, and would you kindly keep fighting the good fight.